Joining me right now, we have Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. Senator, it's good to see you again, sir. So I do want to begin with the unexpected news that we got, 45 minutes ago or so about Senator Thom Tillis and the fact that he will not run again for re-election next year when he would have been up. Was this a surprise to you?
It is a surprise. It's also an indication that Thom Tillis knows this is a very rotten bill. It's been clear from the beginning he had deep misgivings about this bill, and yet he was getting all this pressure from President Trump, among others, who threatened to find a primary opponent for him. So that really is the equation so many Republicans are facing. They know that this is a bad bill, right? Senator Hawley just said earlier today that he recognizes this is a big giveaway to special corporate interests, big tax breaks, while cutting Medicaid and other investments that are important to tens of millions of Americans. This bill is rotten to the core for that reason, but they're under political pressure to try to get it done. Now, it ain't over till it's over, as Yogi Berra famously said, and we're going to be pushing this to the very end to try to stop it.
Can I ask you, sir, because in the statement by Thom Tillis, he said a lot of the reason he's doing this is for it's essentially quality of life for his family. We should note he turns 65 in August, so certainly that is a very understandable time to retire. But what is it like to be the object of the ire of the President of the United States? What kind of pressure does that put someone under?
Well, Alex, it's my view that if you want to be in the United States Senate, you have a responsibility to your constituents. You have a responsibility to the Constitution of the United States. But way too often these days, we see people essentially being a rubber stamp to Donald Trump because of his intimidation, because of his threats. And that warps the process. And this bill is the perfect example because it is a huge tax giveaway to billionaires and very wealthy people and big corporations at the expense of everybody else in America. And if all senators were really representing the people in their state, they would vote down this bill and vote it down big.
Senator, I want to play something that we heard a short time ago from your Democratic colleague, Senator Chris Murphy. Here it is.
I do think there's a chance it doesn't pass. They are trying to ram it through as quickly as they can, likely in the middle of the night tonight, because every day that this bill hangs out there, it becomes less popular. As you noted, by almost a 2-to-1 margin, the American people hate this piece of legislation because it's going to represent the biggest transfer of wealth and money from the poor and the middle class to the rich in the history of the country.
Do you envision this bill not passing, Senator? I mean, a lot of people in the first hour of this broadcast have said it's going to pass. Not only that, sir, out of the Senate, that it will pass through the House and wind up on the president's desk, whether it's July 4th, as he has requested, or July 14th.
Well, Alex, everybody said that the Republican effort to destroy the Affordable Care Act back in 2017 would be successful. Donald Trump was in favor of it. He was in the White House. He had a Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. But, of course, it was dramatically defeated by one vote in the United States Senate. So Senator Murphy's right. They're trying to rush this through the Senate because they know that the more the American people see what's in it, the more they hate it. It's kind of like a dead fish. It stinks very quickly. That's why they're rushing through. That's why we made them read the bill, because there's so much stuff in there that they put in to try to help one of their senators or another that the whole Senate does not even know is there right now. In other words, voting on something they don't know. So we made them read every word. This can still be defeated. It's up to those Republicans whether they want to just do Donald Trump's bidding or do the bidding of their constituents.
And in terms of your analogy, it stinks like fish. I mean, polling has shown this bill is not very popular. You have Fox News, which has 59% of Americans opposing it. Are Republicans thinking ahead to the political consequences? And what will be the strategy for Democrats to try to claw away any possible votes?
Well, they're certainly not thinking ahead if they're thinking about their constituents, and those are the folks who are going to be voting in the next election. All they're doing is thinking about the next Donald Trump tweet that might come out. And that is why this is distorting the process. They are more afraid of Donald Trump's tweets than they're afraid of, ripping Medicaid away from their constituents. But come election time, you can be sure, Alex, the Democratic candidates will let all of their constituents know exactly what bargain they cut, that they kowtowed to Donald Trump to give billionaires tax cuts at the expense of their constituents.
Here's another news nugget for Democrats to let their constituents know, because the Joint Committee on Taxation today said this bill will add $4.45 trillion, again with a T, trillion, to the deficit. Is there any convincing Republicans, traditionally deficit hawks, by the way, to rethink this?
Well, Alex, I'm glad you raised this because, they do pretend they care about the deficit, but everything they do shows that that's a big lie. As you said, CBO just came out with this score of the latest bill, over $4 trillion increase in the debt over the next 10 years. And by the way, Americans end up paying for that debt. It puts upward pressure on interest rates, which means mortgages get more expensive, car loans get more expensive. So once again, in order to cut tax cuts for the rich, they're putting, pressure on all their constituents and increasing costs. I do want to add they're also going to try to engage in a huge accounting fraud later today, because the Republicans are trying to change the rules to hide from the American people the fact that this will increase the deficit and debt by $4 trillion plus over the next 10 years. You'll be hearing a lot more about that later.
Okay. There's another part of the bill, though, we can talk about now, and that is more money for immigration enforcement and border security. And here's again what Senator Murphy said about that.
They are acting in a lawless manner every single day. They are not focusing on dangerous people. They are literally going to Home Depots. They are busting into people's private homes. They are targeting Latinos all over the country, whether they are undocumented or not. This isn't about trying to keep the country safer.
So if and when, sir, this bill passes, can Congress at all control how this new infusion of money is used? Can the Senate work to make sure the administration keeps making broad immigration sweeps in this manner?
Oh, that will be very hard. So make no mistake, Republicans voting for this bill are essentially giving a blank check to the Department of Homeland Security, to this lawless Department of Justice. As Senator Murphy said, Donald Trump told the American people he was going to focus on people who were here who were threats to public safety, right, who had criminal records. What they've engaged in is this huge dragnet of people who've been working in our communities for years and years, contributing to our communities. That's who they're primarily going after right now. And unfortunately, this bill will give the Trump administration even more resources to engage in this outrageous activity, including the breaking of laws and the violations of due process that we've been seeing.